Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. Before we dive in here, I wanted to quickly tell you guys about this tutorial sponsor, which is videobolt.net. So videobolt.net is an amazing new platform for creating custom music visualizers. So whether you're an artist or you're a producer looking for some cool animated videos to support your music, this is an awesome tool to accomplish this. And many of you have asked me how I've done these in the past, and typically it's extremely difficult. It's very time consuming, and it's also been very expensive. And then you need a really fast computer to render them. Just a lot involved to actually make it happen. But fortunately now with videobolt.net, all this happens online in the cloud in your browser. So you don't need specialized software. You don't need graphic editing skills. You just log into your account and they have over 70 custom music visualizers that you can choose from. You can edit these to your liking and then you just hit render. And as soon as it's done, videobolt.net will send you an email and let you know that you can then download your files along with a full license. So if this is something you're interested in, I'm going to put a link in the description below. Let's go ahead and dive in. If you're like me, you're spending a lot of time in the studio these days, and I'm working on a new beat right now and thought this would be a good opportunity to do a new tutorial on EQing in your beats or your instrumentals. I get a lot of questions about this, and so I wanted to just go through this beat mix and just EQ everything from scratch. You're going to notice, and this took a lot of willpower during the production process to not EQ anything, because like I've talked about before, I really just like to go ahead and start doing a lot of the mixing while I'm producing. So for the sake of example, so that I could do this for you guys, I did not do any EQ at all on anything. And then I just did just the essential balance. So let's go ahead and dive in here. I'm going to let you listen to this real quick. Just notice what's going on frequency wise in the different elements here. And then we'll dive in and really clean this thing up. So you get the idea there. There's a lot going on, especially once we hit the chorus here in the low end, just a lot of mud there. And also just get rid of a lot of the mids in some of these instruments. The main kind of organ synth, you can hear just occupies a great deal of low mids. And that's going to compete with some of these other instruments. So we're going to fix that in just a second. We'll go ahead and start with the kick and the sub. Let's just solo these and hear what the relationship is. I'm not really that worried about that right now. The snare is quite massive in terms of just all the frequency information that is there. It needs to cut through, which is great, but I think we're going to get rid of some mids here. Yeah, so there's some low end. There's some other stuff that I just don't need to be there. So let's go ahead and roll off up to about 200 or so. And then there's a big accentuated point here in 1K to 2K, which again, it sounds cool in the context of the beat, but once we start getting into, adding vocals potentially, that's just going to occupy a lot of valuable space. So let's cut some of that. Okay, so just to get rid of some of the harshness. can hear we've got some other snare elements here. So again, just when all that stuff is stacking up, it's just becoming too much. We'll let the other snares that we've got pick up the slack. Let's go to maybe this drum loop. So I want to make sure that that's kind of working with the kick, because it does have some low end information of its own, and actually a kick is happening in that drum loop. So every time our actual kick in the beat happens, I don't want those clashing too much. And mainly I'm just worried about right here at 100. You can see that a lot of the low end is rolled off already on the loop, but right at around 100, we might have some clashing frequencies. And let's just roll that up to right around 100. Same thing with this drum loop. There's some low end here. Actually quite a bit, so we'll get rid of some of that. All right, so again, just letting our main kick really work the low end there, and having the loops just as more of a texture in terms of the lows. Let's see about loop 3. Where's that? See what's going on with the hi-hat. Probably nothing needed to be done here. Yeah, we'll leave that be. One thing to point out, guys, is you definitely want to have your analyzer on the channel EQ. Just gives us a better visual representation and understanding of what's happening. But also, if you want to, get something that looks a lot like mine in terms of the speed that things are responding, you can actually change that here with the analyzer decay. So you can make it as fast or as slow as you want to, but whatever works for you. Not much going on there with that. I'm okay with that. Okay, so let's see how this is working with our main snare here. Actually already pretty well since we EQ'd that other snare, so we may not have to do a whole lot with this one. Mainly just a spike here at 300 in this snare, and then just some sizzle going up from the high mids. So we'll leave that be. That feels pretty good with our other snare. And also we've got those drum loops that have the snares stacked. So it's just all that texture, again, building up. If we don't go in and clean out a lot of that stuff, then they're going to start to clash. So let's play back all of that together just to make sure that those drum loops aren't clashing with the snares. So I'm hearing a little bit of something at 1K that just seems a little harsh. So maybe it's in one of the loops. Let's see. Yeah. So it's one of these. I don't know which one yet, but let's see. There's just a spike at 1K and I can hear it. It's kind of harsh. Not that one. That one. So that, along with our heavy snare and then this little 80 snare down here, it's just getting a little bit much. See that spike at 1K? So let's just get rid of that or tame it some. Obviously, if you guys are familiar with active EQ, another way to do this, but we can do most of this just with a standard EQ. Okay, that should be better. Let's hear that now. Yeah, so just a much more smooth balance there with our snare drums. So with the drums here, mostly just creating space in the low end, cleaning up some of those loops, and taming some of the mids, low mid stuff in those snare drums. So nothing too major. And again, it's okay to not EQ a channel if it doesn't need it. Again, you don't need to EQ a hi-hat unless you need to. So let's go ahead and we'll get into the instrumentation here. A lot more work to be done with these. So let's see this synth organ, which is kind of the main instrument. There's a lot going on. So let's take a listen to that solo and have a look at it. So already you can tell there's, quite a bit going on below 100, and that's going to clash with, our bass line and our kick and some of that other stuff. So I want to be careful there because this is a really warm, inviting sound, and I don't want to roll off too much of that to make it sound thin. So we want to be careful about that and just listen closely. All we're trying to do is just create enough space for our kick and our bass line. We may take out a little bit of this bump here between 200 and 500. So I'm just going to do a pretty wide curve here and just take out about a dB and a half. So this is just a layer underneath that main organ. And once again, a lot of low end information. Okay. Grand piano. Okay, so there's a lot here in this 200 to 500 range that I think is going to just kind of build up and not be as pleasant come chorus time. So let's remove some of that. So just a little bit, and then we may add a little bit of air here just to give the piano a bit of brightness. So not too much, but there's not a ton happening up there. But when we boost it like this, we're just going to get, again, some presence and some subtle air there. I want you to use your ears because, you're going to see things that might kind of jump out at you. And I just noticed looking at this visually that a lot of these points that I'm kind of adjusting, you're actually seeing the points kind of sticking out on the EQ on the analyzer. And that's not always going to be an issue. Your goal is not to visually try to like flatten everything out and make it all, just a pancake. We want to have dynamics. We want to have some EQs that shine. But again, we want everything to be balanced. So certain instruments can do this, can have some points of interest, but others need to create room for it. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to roll this one as low because I do like that texture there. And then there's not much going on. There's kind of a weird little thing up here at 20K, which you might say people can't hear above 20K. You can't, but sometimes it's a sensation. So yeah, we'll just roll. You could hear there's some stuff going on up there. So we'll get rid of that. And nothing was actually showing on the visualizer of the EQ. Something to point out there. Let's go over to the chorus. This is where a lot of things are happening. There's going to be some more buildup And thankfully, we've already cleaned up quite a bit, but I know that we've got some work to do with some of our string instruments. So let's take a listen. Yes, so this beast of a sound here, this orchestral spiccato style sort of thing, there's a lot of frequency information happening. So mainly, I mean, there's a lot of mud down here in the low end. If this was just, an orchestral sort of track where this was kind of the main element, then yeah, having that there in this sound, it sounds cool. But again, we've already got an 808, we've already got a sub bass, we've already got all these things that are going to occupy the low end. So we don't want that in a string instrument, for example, in this context. So you can hear immediately. I mean, that just creates so much more space. Let's hear how that's working now with the low end. Let's disable it. Okay, so I heard it. It sounded a little bit too thin to me, so I just rolled that back a bit. But yeah, now working with the 808 and the kick down here. Lot smoother sound, a lot more space for that 808 to really poke through. So not a ton going on here, but I'm just getting rid of a bit of 2.5K harshness. We'll come back to those Vox stabs here, but I want to go back and get these little synths that are in our verse. And also there's a pad or something. Oh yeah. A lot of murk in that sound, and you can hear when we play it in the context of everything else. Big difference, right? Yeah, so there's all this stuff going on, like saturation or distortion, I guess, that's happening in the preset here. We don't need any of that. So just adding a bit of 10K, a little bit of brightness. That should be good. at this box. I don't think there's much to do with it, but yeah, maybe just some brightness so it can stand out a bit more. Okay, let's try that. We almost forgot a key element there. So without and with, just much cleaner. So a lot of different EQ here done, but let's go ahead and let me just disable the EQ on everything. So we'll just take that off, and then I'm going to enable it so that we can hear the difference, and you can really get a feel for how much difference this makes to go through and EQ everything very precisely. All right, y'all. So as you can hear, we get a much more focused, polished mix. And to the untrained ear, you might say, oh, well, with all the EQs, it sounds thinner. Yes, it is relatively thinner, but we're also getting the focus. We're getting the direction for different instruments that we need, meaning you can really inform the listener where each of these instruments is going to be shining on our frequency soundstage, if you will. So I hope this was helpful, y'all, seeing the entire process of equalizing an entire session, every instrument, start to finish, and just kind of getting an idea of how we're getting these things to work together and be balanced in terms of a frequency relationship. If you have any questions about what we did, feel free to leave a comment below. If you learned anything in the video, please like, subscribe, and consider sharing. We'll talk to you soon.